reminding you talk radio is the immune system to the partisan, bias, political rhetoric attacking us on a daily basis. Get inoculated. The Joe Mangiacotti Show is your vaccine. Join me weekend mornings, 6 to 8.
If you were to ask any retiree in a word, they would tell you that retirement is all about income. Income in retirement is a permission slip to enjoy life. Income provides the freedom to spend money each month knowing that more will arrive next month and the month after that. As important as it is to accumulate assets for your retirement, it's equally, if not more important, to maximize the income being generated from your assets. My name is Jerry Doherty, and my radio program, Making Money Last, has been heard right here on WCRN. Well, do you know if your retirement income is as high as it could be? Are you living off less than you should be? Well, I'd like to offer you a complimentary review to answer that very question. Simply call my office at 877-772-1776. I'm conveniently located right on Route 9 in Westboro. Again, my number is 877-772-1776. Let's increase your income today.
We know why you're awake. Your child is about to get their driver's license. Levante's Auto School offers 1-week driving programs to help make sure your child stays safe and focused behind the wheel.
877-DRIVE-ED. Who's Ed?
That's the number for Levante's Auto School.
Learn to drive safely and efficiently. Visit one of our 5 locations throughout Massachusetts. Click Levante'sAutoschool.com.
Levante's Auto School shows you how to learn the rules and keep your cool. 877-DRIVE-ED.
Who's Ed? That's the number for Levante's Auto School.
The following is a paid program. The opinions are those of the host and guests and not necessarily those of the station or its management.
You are about to undertake a 2-hour experience of eye-opening, mind-expanding, revealing common sense discussion. Common sense citizens, strap yourself in, put your trays in the upright position, remove dentures and loose jewelry, get comfortable, take a deep breath, and come along for the ride. It is time for the Joe Mangiacotti Show on Powerhouse Station WCRN 830, and our affiliates, and streaming on the TuneIn app. It's Joe time, baby.
All right, folks. Good morning, and welcome to the Sunday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show from the Boxdrop Middlesex Mattress Outlet Studios. I am Joe Mangiacotti. Teddy Goodpup in studio with me here, chilling, taking a nap. Cam, fly on the board. Good morning, Cam.
Good morning.
How are you today, sir?
Not too bad. How about yourself?
Good. How'd you like the surprise snowstorm? Or was it a surprise? It was to me because I didn't know it was coming.
I didn't see it until the morning. I woke up, I had
look
like,
out the window,
I had
right?
like 5 or 6 inches in Westminster.
Oh my goodness, yeah. I was totally shocked because I just didn't catch it. If they said it was coming on the news, I missed it.
I saw something about a winter weather advisory or something, but I didn't pay attention to it because I was like, it's April.
It's April, right. Right. What are those jamokes talking about? I get it, but it was fine, and hopefully that's it for the season. We should be thinking, boating and camping and cookouts and all that kind of jazz that we do. All right. Of course, we're on the net, folks, at TJMShow.com. Go check it out. On all of our social media programs or platforms, I should say, Joe Mangi Show, M-A-N-G-I, Joe Mangi Show, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Rumble, YouTube, Parler. They're all there. There's another one out there, too, some text one. You can join the conversation anytime at 508-871-7000. That's our line for two-way talk and conversation as we broadcast from a palatial but not overly ostentatious studios in Westboro, Massachusetts. You can also text us in real time at 617-297-8388. And we can take us anywhere because we're on TuneIn. Right? Just punch in WCRN, and we're on any device that you can stream it on. You can tell Alexa, hey, play WCRN. She'll do it. No questions asked. We're also live streaming on our Facebook page for the show, that is. So Joe Mangi Show, M-A-N-G-I, Joe Mangi Show, Facebook. Yeah, there's a camera set up in the studio, but the important thing is the audio is streaming there. So multiple ways to listen to it. If you need to get a hold of me or the show off air, you can do it via the email JoeMShow@gmail.com or call the office at 508-603-9778. And I got to remember to give a shout out to our affiliate in Western Massachusetts, WACE AM 730. Morning to those folks out there. All right, good show lined up. We have actually coming up a little later, I think this hour, we're going to talk with Donna Donna Jackson. She's with Project 21, just like our old friend Horace Cooper. And he's going to join us later in the show as well. So I was lucky to be able to grab those two to join us at different times this morning. They have great insight into everything political going on. And, of course, they are a black think tank in Washington, D.C. They really do have a handle on trends and movement and where we're going with things. So we'll be talking to both of them at some point this morning. So great. What else is happening? Well, yeah, what else is happening, right? That's a loaded question. We see a lot of things going on again with the big tech companies. You know, the digital revolution, the age of the internet. This was supposed to give Americans, access to everything, right? I mean, we talk about this over and over again. The Section 230 and the beginning of the internet, and how that and why that was placed into an existence. And this new thing at the time called the internet was supposed to give us everything we wanted to know, right? We have all of the known knowledge to man at our fingertips, right? In a device that you can put in your shirt pocket. It's incredible. The ability to communicate whatever we wanted to anybody we wanted, right? Information was supposed to be democratized and liberated from the clutches of the newspaper barons and the network chiefs. But we've seen something happen in the last few years. Powerful interests have consolidated, maybe reconsolidated, right? In every civilization or stage of civilization, 80-20 rule. Small number of people consolidate power and wealth, and they can control that information. And sometimes they're even selling lies for profit. One of my favorite authors, right, Tom Clancy, love his novels. And he has, and of course, when he writes his books, he's making observations on our society, right? He's making observations on the culture of things. And he wrote, the control of information is something the elite always does, particularly in a despotic form of government. Information, knowledge is power. If you can control information, you can't control people. But never before in American history have a handful of companies had so much power. Now, these companies dominate our communications. News and information, big media and big tech have officially merged, but they've merged with just one political party, right? The same party that controls the state. The party controls the House, the Senate, the White House. And now efforts are underway to control the co-equal branch of government that we've always thought was the safety net, the backstop to any ridiculousness. These mergers represent and present an unprecedented danger to the American people, a danger to the truth because we're being manipulated by the money. The money does buy power, it buys information, and it buys the manipulation. Who are we talking to, by the way, right? Who are these people? The big media parent companies. That's where the action is. That's where the evil is, actually. CNN, which is owned by Warner Media, is owned by AT&T. MSNBC and NBC News, owned by Comcast. CBS, owned by Viacom, and they're owned by National Amusements. ABC, as we all know, is owned by Disney. And New York Times is half a family business with large outside investors. And the Washington Post is owned by Amazon's Jeff Bezos, pretty much the world's richest man. These big media companies and their parent companies, they control almost 100% of the news and coverage and the content that we are able to digest. They control the narrative. They don't ever cover something if it doesn't exist, right? If CNN didn't air it, it's not a story. Doesn't exist. If they don't cover it, if they don't put it on their news and you talk about it, you're a conspiracy theorist. Nut job. They also create scandals. Right? Russian hoax. We can go on there. Or they cover them up. Hunter's laptop. They employ just thousands of producers and executives, anchors, writers, reporters. Most every news element you consume, they have their hands on it. Fingerprints all over it while having their hand in the cookie jar. It's all happening. And they have their hands in politics as well. So in the last election, presidential election, see, the employees and the PACs at these big media companies, they donated over $37 million to Democrats and under $11 million to Republicans. So 70% of that money went to Democrats, only 30% to the GOP. Big media companies shower the Democratic Party with multi-million-dollar donations, and they cover the party. And they have this hive of power, Democrat donors controlling these news organizations, pretending that they're actually the umpire, right? They're not the ump. They're not the umpire, no. We've talked about this. They're not the fourth branch. They're not the truth keepers, the questioners. Big tech, Facebook, Twitter, Google, Apple control how Americans communicate. This is the part that's scary. This is the part I always have to talk to you about because something's got to break here. News and information we see and don't see, even what type of people that we can interact with online are controlled by them, monitored by them. And even what language we're allowed to use, regardless of the fact that, we're adults. We can make these decisions for ourselves, but we're slaves to these little screens, folks. By the way, big tech employees in PACs donated $36 million to Democrats and under $3 million to Republicans. So the total of 92% of donations went to Democrats, 8% of donations went to Republicans, and that's from the employees. So there's no competition. A tight-knit band of corporate Democrats now control how we process the information and exactly what that information is. Now, their news product and their agenda has merged also with the Democratic Party. And now that they've taken control of the executive branch and both chambers of the legislative, what are they selling? Well, they're selling fear. So we have Project Veritas. And this is interesting because I'm going to play a clip from Project Veritas. See, they went undercover, right? We're so used to them doing this. And the Democrats have got to be fearful because they're very good at what they do. Project Veritas went undercover and spoke to the director, or a tech director in CNN, Charlie Chester, right? Who admitted to playing that they played on the COVID fears. They played the fear card for ratings. And here, recorded without his, secretly done in a investigation, is Charlie Chester, CNN technical director from CNN.
Sad news, back to back to back, doesn't do really well unless it affects them directly. COVID, gangbusters at ratings, right? Which is why we constantly have the death toll on the side, which I have a major problem with, that we're tallying how many people die every day. Because I'd even look at it and be like, let's make it higher. Like, why isn't it high enough, today? Like, it would make our point better if it was higher. like this special red phone ringer. Yeah. And they pick it up, and it's like the head of the network being like, there's nothing that you're doing right now that makes me want to stick. Put the numbers back up, because that's the most enticing thing that we have.
Red phone. So you have the boss just calling up the control room and saying, put those numbers back up. It's the most enticing info we have. So CNN is a fearmonger, right? They're using the virus for ratings and for profit, making CNN viewers some of the most misinformed Americans about the deadliest virus, or I should say the deadliness of the virus. Those who binge CNN believed 30-year-olds were just dropping dead every time they stepped outside. I can tell it when someone's a CNN watcher, the way they are. I mean, they're all by themselves. Maybe they're walking a dog and nobody's around them for hundreds and hundreds of feet, and they have a mask on, or they have a mask on while they're driving alone in their car. You can pick them out pretty easily. It was just locked down porn, which also syncs up with the Democratic Party agenda. Prolonging the pandemic mentally justifies emergency spending into the trillions. Hey, never let a good crisis go to waste. Even if the Dems and the left are noticing this, what was interesting is Bill Maher. He's known to be pretty left, but he's also calls it as it is a lot of the times. And when Bill Maher is calling you on your behavior, it's time to re-examine it. And Bill Maher has become more open to relaying the truth. His audience are so used to him hammering the right and Republicans relentlessly. But to the amazement of his studio audience, you can hear crickets sometimes here when he actually tells the truth. But to the amazement of his audience in the studio, they knew he was right. Here's Bill Maher talking about the Democrats getting a clue. Bill Maher? Oh, okay. We'll go back to that, but we should have Bill Maher, probably the last one on the clip. All right, we'll go. Well, fine. Let me know when you find that, Cam. Let's go back to Project Veritas in CNN.
We got Trump back. I am 100% going to say it, and I 100% believe it, that if it wasn't for CNN, I don't know that Trump would have gotten voted out. Our focus was to get Trump out of office, right?
Get Trump out of office. That's CNN's other design, was to knock him out of office. You just heard, again, we're back to Charlie Chester. Get him out of office. Now, what are they going to change their attention to? See, besides ideology, why would CNN's parent company, AT&T, as I laid out a little while ago, want Trump out of the White House so badly? I mean, they really wanted him out. Because Trump was tough on China. And AT&T has billions at stake in this communist country. Trump's trade war alone, human rights posture, the use of the military and technology sanctions were good for the American people, but they were bad for business for AT&T. The company's been in China for over 30 years. They have branches everywhere. Extensive networks throughout the mainland, massive mobile coverage, network coverage clouds. You name it, AT&T had China wired. Specifically, AT&T does big business with China Telecom, and that's controlled by the Chinese military. And let's not forget, folks, see, they use forced labor and commit human rights abuses against Muslim workers. Trump slapped sanctions on China Telecom, delisted them from the stock exchange, and AT&T went crazy. Top executives contacting the White House begging Trump to relax. Back off. That's going to work. Remember how much they donated to the Biden and the Democrats? Biden campaign and the Democrats? You see why now you get some friendly faces in there to China. They want that. Beijing, Biden. The president keeps bragging about spending 2 hours on the phone with the Chinese president. 2 hours. What did they talk about? The Chinese Communist Party unleashed a virus at a Wuhan laboratory and covered it up, killing over 500,000 Americans. But Biden didn't find the time to confront the Chinese president about that. There was a chance to ask him if these reports are true, that China maybe misled the world at the beginning. We know they did. We saw the lie on the WHO website. Fox's Peter Doocy had a chance to get a question in, and he asked President Biden what he talked about. Here's Doocy.
Reports are true that China maybe misled the world at the beginning.
No, I have not had that conversation with President Xi. Thank you.
We had a chance to ask.
No, I didn't. Yeah, 2 hours and it didn't come up. The Democrats and the media can't place the blame on China. That's bad for business. They have to place the blame for the virus on Donald Trump. The perception of the pandemic was shaped by the Democratic donors who had big business in China and by partisan ideologies who played up the fear for profit. Again. Later in the video, CNN director reveals the network will be pivoting. I think we have that final Project Veritas. No. All right, we'll look for that. I'll see where those clips are. They're on the SoundCloud? Link up? No. All right, later, see, the CNN director reveals the network. They're going to pivot from the COVID-19, which they take great pride in whipping Americans who pay attention to CNN up into this frenzy. And again, the statistics are, the survey show, I mean, they really, half of these CNN watchers, and these are young people, millennials, believe that if you get COVID, 50% believe anyway, that if you get it, you're hospitalized. Whereas, if you're under 50 years old, chances of being hospitalized are zero to nil to zero, right? 99.999% survival, and you'd have to have some other issue going on. So this year, there's going to be a need for a lot of green to be had going on. See, so what they're going to do is they're going to pivot now to climate change. For CNN's parent company, AT&T, who just a few years ago bought a giant amount of wind and power in Texas and Oklahoma. This year, they expect to cash in on Biden's $3 trillion infrastructure blowout with green giveaways to donors and fat federal contracts. So going green is, at AT&T's way of being woke. And it really does give a new meaning to going green. They'll be getting a lot of the green. So politicians turn their back on their joint ventures with Chinese military-controlled slave labor camps. Big media happy to run disinformation leaks by the intelligence agencies to dirty up Trump with Russia. And you remember, the collusion hoax, the Russian bounty story that just got blown out of the water this past week. But when real news breaks, damaging Democrats with China, like Hunter's laptop, the intel community The big tech and big medias, they just shut that down. So-called journalists are complicit in the cover-up. They force-feed you the most preposterous lies until you believe it's truth, or you don't even bother to speak up. They told us the protests last summer, hey, they're mostly peaceful. Well, we're watching on the screen, being told that, as fires burn behind them, lights the screen up. They told us Trump was a Russian agent. Trump. Probably the most patriotic American businessman of the last quarter century. Pro-American businessman. There's a quote from Theodore Dumpel, and he describes this technique born from the communist propaganda. He says, in my study of the communist societies, I came to the conclusion that the purpose of communist propaganda was not to persuade or convince, not to inform, but to humiliate. And therefore, the less it corresponded to reality, the better. When people are forced to remain silent, when they're being told the most obvious lies, or even worse, when they are forced to repeat the lies themselves, they lose, once and for all, their sense of probity. To assent to obvious lies is in some small way to become evil oneself. Once standing to resist anything is eroded and even destroyed, a society of emasculated liars is easy to control. American society, bludgeoned into submission by lies, is incapable of standing up for themselves and exhibiting strong moral principles of honesty and decency. We're basically easy to control. Once we've been humiliated into reciting the lies we're fed. So that's happened to us, right? We've been fed these lies. They get repeated. And what happens if you don't repeat them? What are you called if you don't repeat them? If you don't repeat them or agree with them and you question them or have a different opinion on social media, you're canceled. And then what about the workplace? You're afraid to not repeat the lies for fear of, worst case scenario, being fired. But probably just ruin your career. Maybe become stagnant where you are. All right, folks, we're going to have to take a break here for 6:30. Listen to it with Joe. Maybe you'll find it further home. When we come back on the other side of the break, we're going to be joined by Donna Jackson from Project 21. We'll check in with her, and we'll go from there. 508-871-7000. I'm Joe Mangiacotti. Hey folks, Joe Mangiacotti here, and I have recently purged and refreshed with new furniture and, most importantly, a new bed. We spend about a third of our life on our mattresses, and it's so vital we have the right one, and we don't break the bank to do that. I first bought a mattress from the big store the brothers used to own, and a power base that moved the head and feet, and then I met John, and I checked out his showroom at 50 Main Street in Ashland and online at boxdropmiddlesex.com, and ended up with a better mattress, a power base that also heats and massages, all for less than half of what I was going to spend at the other place. Boxdrop is a discount mattress store, and John specializes in clearance and closeouts, and he buys directly from the manufacturer with a low overhead and just family employees, passing the savings on to you, and you can see it reflected in the price every day. Click boxdropmiddlesex.com or call John on his cell. This is his cell number, 508-579-9303. That's 508-579-9303, and you can find John on Facebook at Boxdrop Middlesex. John loves referrals, and this is the best referral I've given so far this year. Dropboxmiddlesex.com.
The This is Sean Burke, President of the Licensed Private Detectives Association of Massachusetts, asking you to visit us at lpdam.org when you think you need a private investigator. Don't let your emotions negatively affect your future. Get your answers through a Massachusetts licensed private investigator. Get the facts without risking your credibility by unknowingly committing a criminal offense. You need a license to perform investigations in Massachusetts. What are some types of work that requires a license? Any type of surveillance, interviewing someone for a third party, background and asset checks are just a few examples. For more on this, visit us at lpdm.org and tune into AM 830 WCRN Sunday mornings at 7:30 for case files from the LPDM or anytime at lpdmcasefiles.com.
We know why you're awake. Your child is about to get their driver's license. Levante's Auto School offers 1-week driving programs to help make sure your child stays safe and focused behind the wheel.
877 Drive Ed. Who's Ed?
That's the number for Levante's Auto School.
Learn to drive safely and efficiently. Visit one of our 5 locations throughout Massachusetts. Click Levante'sAutoschool.com.
Levante's Auto School shows you how to learn the rules and keep your cool. 877 Drive Ed.
Who's Ed? That's the number for Levante's Auto School.
It's time to go out with Joe.
Welcome to Out with Joe. I'm Joe Mangiacotti. This Out with Joe is brought to you by Nothing Bundt Cakes, located in White City Plaza in Shrewsbury. On today's Out with Joe, we'll be discussing a recent trend in fast food chains, the fried chicken sandwich. And for this, we turn to special contributor to Out with Joe, Daniel Kropp. Daniel?
Thank you, Joe. The chicken sandwich started with Chick-fil-A's introduction of its legendary chicken sandwich in 1964. Fast forward to 2019, when Popeyes introduced a chicken sandwich to compete in the market that Chick-fil-A had controlled for over 50 years. This new sandwich quickly became a fast food phenomenon. In the following 2 years, fast food competitors such as KFC, McDonald's, Burger King, and Wendy's introduced their own chicken sandwiches to join this competition. This iconic fried chicken sandwich generally consists of a piece of fried chicken sandwiched in a bun with pickles and a mayo-based sauce. Every one of these sandwiches costs between $5 and $6. The average customer has many options to choose from when searching for a fried chicken sandwich today, and it's important that each customer knows which of these products are amazing and which just missed the mark. It's not very surprising that the best chicken sandwiches belong to Chick-fil-A and Popeyes, the trendsetters for this wave. Compared to their competitors, the quality of the chicken and the overall construction of the sandwich is unrivaled. These sandwiches are easily the top tier of the fast food fried chicken sandwich. The middle tier contains KFC, Wendy's, and Burger King. These sandwiches are lower quality than their competitors, be it less satisfying in texture or inferior chicken. However, these sandwiches are not entirely terrible. I had a pretty high expectation for KFC, since fried chicken is really their thing, but I found that their chicken just did not translate to sandwich form as well as I'd hoped. However, it was better than both Wendy's and Burger King, just not good enough to play with the varsity league of fried chicken sandwiches. Coming in dead last is the McDonald's chicken sandwich. I made the mistake of trying this once, and I regretted it. The chicken was undercooked, small, and unsatisfying. The construction was sloppy. The entire sandwich was just disappointing. McDonald's is well known for the dollar menu and its low prices, but with this sandwich costing just as much as its competitors, its quality is just dreadful. In conclusion, I believe that burger places should stick to burgers, and chicken places should stick to chicken. For a good chicken sandwich, go to a restaurant known for chicken.
Thank you, Daniel. For more dining information and news, click outwithjoe.com and follow us on our social media platforms at OutWithJoe. We are suspending the Music Minute for obvious reasons. Support your local musicians. We do. This Out With Joe has been brought to you by Nothing Bundt Cakes, White City Plaza, Shrewsbury, and on Facebook at Nothing Bundt Cakes, Shrewsbury. Have you heard of the hottest new bakery around? I know you heard about it right here. My friend Al has opened Nothing Bundt Cake in the White City Plaza in Shrewsbury. Nothing Bundt Cake is a bakery chain and is locally owned and operated by my friend Al. They have bundt cakes ranging from bite-sized to tiered, plus platters, candles, and cards. For any occasion, function, or just to have around the house or office, stop by and check them out. Everything is baked from scratch and on site. Nothing beats a sweet surprise. And until you try one of Al's bundt cakes, you haven't tried a real bundt cake. Stop by and ask for Al. Tell him Joe told you to stop by. 98 Boston Turnpike, White City Plaza near Planet Fitness, Shrewsbury, and on Facebook as well, Nothing Bundt Cake, Shrewsbury.
To join the conversation, call 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. Now, here's your host, Joe Mangiacotti.
All right, folks, welcome back to the second half of the first hour of the Joe Mangiacotti Show On AM 830, WCRN and our affiliates. We're live streaming on the TuneIn app, so don't forget to take us anywhere. Just punch in WCRN on any streaming device, and we're right there with you. You can tell Alexa, hey, play WCRN. She'll do it, no questions asked. Find us on all the social media platforms at Joe Mangi Show, M-A-N-G-I, Joe Mangi Show. Don't forget, we're live streaming on our Facebook page at Joe Mangi Show. There is a camera, but that's not the big deal. It's the audio is there, and it's streaming as we broadcast from the Box Drop Middlesex Mattress Outlet Studios in our palatial but not overly ostentatious studios in Westborough, Massachusetts. So let me invite into the conversation, as promised, Project 21 member Donna Jackson. Now, she's a seasoned accountant, seasonal accountant, I guess, with public and private sector experience, as well as previous forays into politics. And she's joining us, and I'll let you fill in a little bit of the background. Welcome. I think this is the first time you're joining us, Donna.
Yes, it is. Thank you for having me.
No, thank you for getting up early on a Sunday morning. I appreciate that. Project 21, Black Leadership Network. You guys have been part of the show here for a very long time, and I appreciate everything that you guys do. And just give us a little, before we get into things, give me a little bit more of your background, because you had a lot to do with Huckleberry and the governor's race.
Yes. Well, you know, my background is in accounting. Like you said, I was a public accounting, Ernst & Young. I also was deputy controller for the Export-Import Bank. But I've always had a passion for conservatism. I was in Arkansas when Arkansas was a blue state. We were the little party that could, and so I've helped with campaigns like Mike Huckabee when he ran for lieutenant governor, when he ran for Senate. He finally got, the win, and also the governor's race. Asa Hutchinson, actually, and also Tim Hutchinson. But, we would go through the state and identify, potential candidates, and we finally flipped the state red. So
nice. You know something, Donna? Coming from an accountant background, right, illogical numbers and so forth, to me that makes sense that conservatism was attractive to you, because conservatism to me always makes sense. Things fit, right? It's logical. I can see the parallel there.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been in accounting, but I've also been in operations. I've been in finance, sales, and marketing. Listen, business is what makes this economy work. They employ people, they promote people, they provide goods and services. They're efficient in being able to move society forward in the things that we need. Government, their main design is stopping the progress. I mean, just to give an example, if you do a budget in a private corporation, it takes 3 months from the budget, numbers to implementation. That same process, 18 to 24 months just to get the budget, not even to get it going.
And and that's 2 years later. How can you do a fiscal year budget, right, for that year?
Well, you can't. Well, you don't. You do a fiscal year and you're pulling out imaginary numbers, because in business, if you don't respond effectively with your consumers, you go out of business, because the profit is determined by how efficient and how satisfied your customers are. But in business, you don't. You just add more money to it. You just grab taxpayer dollars. You just make government bigger. It's less efficient. And then you have what we have now, where, government is a dysfunction, because it actually goes in. If you want to make a problem worse, pull the government into it.
Wow. Charles Payne, right, on Fox, and he's the money guy. He was talking at one of these, as the guest, not on his show, at some point in the last few days. I caught him, and he was talking about this. And he said this has been around a while, and I'm trying to remember the term they put on it, but this financial philosophy that, forget having taxes and balancing budgets that meet the revenue, which is how, we run our household and how we run our businesses in private sector. I have small businesses. The only way they stay in place is if my expenses don't exceed the revenue coming in. And he said this new philosophy is just simply, since the government prints money anyway, just print more of it. There we go. Problem solved. Now, if we could say, well, I can just print more money. Let me get a printer and, go in the basement and let me get to it. No, there's a law against that. So I don't know how well this is going to work, because what's going to happen, Donna, with the the inflation side of things when we pay $12 for a gallon of milk?
Oh, and it's we're paying people in California are paying $5 for a gallon of gas. So
already. Now that's going to keep going up, yeah. And that's going to happen here. And I have, and I know we haven't talked a lot, but I got to tell you, I have always had, that's just one of those things with the hair across for me, because the gasoline cost, the taxes that are on the gas and the fact of what does gas itself cost is a big thing to me, because it's the most punitive tax that there is to the middle class working person out there. Because if you're wealthy and your gas goes from costing you $80 a week to go back and forth to work to $130 a week, that's say $30 that adds up, right? So at $1.20 a month, the difference, Donna, that's the difference for cable for that family. That's the difference in whether that family can save enough to go away for a week or go to amusement parks. Something else in the budget has to go. They don't have the cushion in their budget to absorb that. And if you're not very wealthy and you live probably either you're not employed, you're on whatever systems, programs there are, you don't have a car, you're in the city, it's not going to make a big difference to you. It doesn't matter to you. So the most punitive, it attacks the middle class working person who has no choice but to drive those miles to work every day just to keep the roof over their head and the food on the table. So I have a real problem with not being energy independent. I have a problem with every time they look to the gas taxes or anything to do with the road, right? We have Buttigieg floating this per mile, right? I think he got slapped down pretty quick on this, but he actually put up the trial balloon on taxing us for each mile we drive, because the push for the green means you don't buy gas, guys. So all that revenue is going to go away. So and Buttigieg says, well, it's always been, we've gotten it from you per mile by the gas tax. So we'll just put it, and that doesn't mean the gas tax will go away, right? That per mile is just going to probably be added onto it. I think we're digressing though, right? But I'm sorry about that, because it's good stuff. But what I did want to talk to you about, and let's turn our attention a little bit to the Georgia, the 2021 voter law in Georgia. It's caused quite a stir. But before I even go into that, I want you to acknowledge and comment on the fact that the black vote has broken records this time around, right? The black voter block is the largest it's ever been. What's your take on that?
Well, the black vote for the last two election cycles has been set record highs. In 2018, it was the second highest. 2020, it even broke that record. When Barack Obama ran, it was a record high. So, there's no issue in terms of access to the black vote, okay? The real issue that we're really seeing is how these votes are coming in. Because one of the issues that we found, and Project 21 has studied this, is that they tend to be not legal votes, watered down, and that's why it's this extreme push to not have voters have ID cards, because all the dead people in the cemetery can vote. Multiple people can vote for people that are deceased, all types of things. illegal immigrants can vote under the guise of, being a black voter, things like that. And so, that's the real issue. It's not access. It's not that people don't have the requirements that they need. It's that you can do more ballot harvesting.
Yeah.
Where you actually determine your own outcomes. The liberals want to make sure that these same politicians stay in office that, have not been producing for black people. And that's why you have a lot of black people who will say that their vote doesn't count. It doesn't mean that they didn't vote, but the way that they wanted to vote in terms of who they wanted in office to represent them, what goals they wanted to have achieved are not happening because their votes are being watered down by all of these illegal votes. And that's the real issue.
And that's the issue across the board. And let's go to Georgia's law, and specifically, first of all, these companies, Coca-Cola, Delta, based in Atlanta, they actually had a say. They had an input with the law being written, and then all of a sudden, they have a real problem with it because of a few tweets or what have you, and they back up from this. But the law itself really, to me, was excellent because of the voter ID part of it that went into it. I'd actually, Donna, I don't like the fact that they put the drop boxes out there, only because they're not secure and they can be stuffed easily. Nobody's watching them. That doesn't make any sense to me. And it's 17 days of early voting, which I think to me is about the max you should have. It is 19 if you opt in for the Sundays, right? Some of the counties can take a Sunday if they want. So, but let's call it 17 days of early voting, which is fine. I mean, I'm sorry, but if you know that, we all know when the election is, right? We know what it is. And if you can't get yourself together and vote early or get to the polls the day of it or what have you, maybe you shouldn't be voting. But, that opens a cans of worm there, right? But we have plenty of time for you to get your stuff together and vote that day. This mass mail-in, mailing a ballot automatically out to everybody, absolutely is the recipe for voter fraud. You have ballots floating out there, and we heard this. We saw this, right, from the postal workers, from people who found, ballots in ditches on the side of the road. Lobbies of apartment buildings and condo buildings were littered with them, and people saying, you sent me, I didn't ask for this. You sent it. You sent the person who lived here 10 years ago. You sent it to my mother who's been dead for 4 years. So you have two things going on there, Donna, right? You have this just arbitrarily just flooding ballots out there, and then if you don't purge, and the left tries to tell us purging voter lists is racist. How do we get to that? Because purging just simply means going through the list and making sure, A, you're alive, which I think is pretty good criteria to vote, and B, that you actually live at that address. That's what it does. And if you're not alive or you don't live there, you come off the list, as you should. How is that racist?
That's not. Well, the liberals' answer to get anyone to back off an issue and not look as closely is to call you a racist. That's the way they do it. Nothing about that is racist. You move from one address to another. You notify your credit card company not to send your statement to your old address. Is it racist for the credit card company to not send your statement to your old address? No, it's not. I mean, all of the things that they claim are racist are things that businesses use in their daily practices. If you hire somebody at a corporation, your onboarding, part of your onboarding is going to be that you have to produce an identification card. If you go to Walmart, if you go to Target to return a item that you purchased and you misplaced your receipt, you have to show an ID card. I just got my vaccination. I had to show my ID card 3 different times in the same clinic to walk from one point to another. That's not racism. You know what's really racism? Is this notion black people are so ignorant. Identification card. That's what's really racist. That black people are so stupid that they can't get to a polling place on time, that they don't know how to register to vote, that they don't know how to contact the registrar and let them know that I've moved from one location to another. That's what's really racist.
Right.
So, this notion that, we're so ignorant and so incapable that anytime, that if you put any kind of identification